meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion as we know it is that it is so mixed up with grim duties. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation, when correctly done, has nothing to do with all that. It's a kind of digging the present. It's a kind of grooving with the eternal now. And brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now.
This moment is the creation of the universe. It's starting now. If you look back and wonder whether there was a big bang a long time ago, all you'll see is vanishing traces. The big bang is happening now. This is when the world begins. You're doing it. Only you're not doing it by straining. A you deeper than the straining you is doing all this. The same you that is growing your hair and coloring your eyes and making your thumbprints and all that. You don't think about it. You don't strain muscles to do it. But that is what is creating the world. Here it comes. Now. So instead of thinking that the past is the reality which explains everything that happens now, let's look at now.
Law of One series. Hope you guys are ready to enjoy this. I'm not sure why we're not going full screen. We certainly should be. Yeah, there we go. Let's try that. All said, we got a lot going on. We got covering two session 69 and session 70. A lot of it really seems to be around his fear that they're going to be approached by the negative and taken control of when they're in trance states or when they're in out-of-body moments, that they're going to somehow be taken over by the negative. That's really a heavy amount of the focus. So trance state, abduction, I kind of wrote it as a sort of note. One thing that they didn't necessarily all fully appreciate or understand was the power of the three of them is what mattered. And I think oftentimes when they thought about the psychic attack, they focused on it more from Carla's standpoint. But in reality, all three of them were having psychic attack. And I forget if it's which one it is that's doing the general dialogue, but this individual constantly questions themselves like, oh, it's a stupid question. That's stupid. I'm sorry. And that is part of that as well. That was their way of weakening him, making him diminish himself and thusly making the sessions less valuable. So there's a lot that went into all that. And let's see if it happened. I'm not sure what I meant by that. Also, let's see. And we're going to kind of get into the metaphysical. They sort of define that instead of magic. They choose the term metaphysical, which I think is a very, very cool place for that word to start back then anyways. And certainly what it means now and what it's kind of become. I think it's also fantastic. So again, very, very good stuff. We're going to kick this off. Of course, questions come. You guys put a question in when you do it, and then it'll help get it my way. But we're going to do that. And then after the show, for anybody that wants to join, I shared the link to the StreamYard. So we just kind of hang out for a few, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. We'll see if there's questions or anything. But it's something I offer to you guys. If you manage to make it through the whole show, then you can definitely be a part of that if you'd like to be. All said, it is a lot of fun. Let's kick off session 69. This is the Law of One series. It's something that is near and dear to my heart. And I'm very glad I get to experience with you, but certainly learn, teach, learn with you guys as well. So here is session 69 on the Fringe. Of One, session 69, recorded August 29th, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Before we proceed, may we make a small request for future workings. At this particular working, there is some slight interference with the contact due to the hair of the instrument. We may suggest the combing of this antenna-like material into a more orderly configuration prior to the working. We communicate now. Questioner. Question about the instrument's condition, not on tape. Ra. I am Ra. It is as previously stated. Questioner. Do you mean that the physical energy is completely depleted? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct, although we have a physical energy transferred and available for this working. Questioner. Thank you. A question I didn't get to ask the previous session, which I will be forced to continue at this time, is the trance state the only condition from which a mind-body-spirit positive entity may be lured by a negative adept to a negative time-space configuration? Ra. I am Ra. This is misperceived concept. The mind-body-spirit complex, which freely leaves the third density physical vehicle, is vulnerable when the appropriate protection is not at hand. You may perceive carefully that very few entities which choose to leave their physical complexes are doing work of such a nature as to attract the polarized attention of negatively oriented entities. The danger to most in trance state, as you term the physical complex being left, is the touching of the physical complex in such a manner as to attract the mind-body-spirit complex back thereunto, or to damage the means by which that which you call ectoplasm is being recalled. This instrument is an anomaly, in that it is well that the instrument not be touched or artificial light thrown upon it while in the trance state. However, the ectoplasmic activity is interiorized. The main difficulty, as you are aware, is then the previously discussed negative removal of the entity under its free will. That this can happen only in the trance state is not completely certain, but it is highly probable that in another out-of-body experience, such as death, the entity here examined would, as most positively polarized entities, have a great deal of protection from comrades, guides, and portions of the self which would be aware of the transfer you call the physical death. Questioner. Then you are saying that the protective friends, I will call them, would be available in every condition except for what we would call the trance state, which seems to be animalistic with respect to the others. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Why is this trance state, as we call it, different? Why are there not protective entities available in this particular state? Ra. Ra. I am Ra. The uniqueness of this situation is not the lack of friends, for this, as all entities, has its guides or angelic presence and, due to polarization, teachers and friends also. The unique characteristic of the workings which the social memory complex Ra and your group have begun is the intent to serve others with the highest attempt at near purity which we as comrades may achieve. This has alerted a much more determined friend of negative polarity which is interested in removing this particular opportunity. We may say once again 2 notes. Firstly, we searched long to find an appropriate channel or instrument and an appropriate support group. If this opportunity is ended, we shall be grateful for that which has been done, but the probability vortices indicating the location of this configuration again are slight. Secondly, we thank you, for we know what you sacrifice in order to do that which you as a group wish to do. We will not deplete this instrument insofar as we are able. We have attempted to speak of how the instrument may deplete itself through too great a dedication to the working. All these things and all else we have said has been heard. We are thankful. In the present situation, we express thanks to the entities who call themselves Latwi. Questioner. Do I understand, then, that death, whether it is by natural means or accidental death or suicide, all deaths of this type would create the same after-death condition which would avail an entity to its protection from friends? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. We presume you mean to inquire whether, in the death experience, no matter what the cause, the negative friends are not able to remove an entity. This is correct largely because the entity, without the attachment to the space-time physical complex, is far more aware and without the gullibility which is somewhat the hallmark of those who love wholeheartedly. However, the death, if natural, would undoubtedly be more harmonious. the death by murder being confused and the entity needing some time-space in which to get its bearings, so to speak. The death by suicide causing the necessity for much healing work and, shall we say, the making of a dedication to the third density for the renewed opportunity of learning the lesson set by the higher self. Questioner: is this also true of unconscious conditions due to accident or medical anesthetics or drugs? Ra: I am Ra. Given that the entity is not attempting to be of service in this particular way, which is proceeding now, the entities of negative orientation would not find it possible to remove the mind-body-spirit complex. The unique characteristic, as we have said, which is, shall we say, dangerous, is the willing of the mind-body-spirit complex outward from the physical complex of third density for the purpose of service to others. In any other situation, this circumstance would not be in effect. Questioner: would this be a function of the balancing action under the first distortion? Ra: I am Ra. Your query is somewhat opaque. Please restate for specificity. Questioner: I was just guessing that since the mind-body-spirit complex is willed from the third density body for a particular duty of service to others, that this then would create a situation primarily with respect to the first distortion, where the opportunity for balancing this service by the negative service would be available and, therefore, shall I say, magically possible for the intrusion of the other polarization. Is this thinking at all correct? Ra: I am Ra. No. The free will of the instrument is indeed a necessary part of the opportunity afforded the Orion group. However, this free will and the first distortion applies only to the instrument. The entire hope of the Orion group is to infringe upon free will without losing polarity. Thus, this group, if represented by a wise entity, attempts to be clever. Questioner: now, has a wanderer ever been so infringed upon by, shall I say, a negative adept or whoever, and then placed in a negative time-space? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: can you tell me of the situation that the wanderer finds itself in, and why the path back cannot be the simple moving back in the same value of positive time-space? Ra: I am Ra. The path back revolves, firstly, about the higher self's reluctance to enter negative space-time. This may be a significant part of the length of that path. Secondly, when a positively oriented entity incarnates in a thoroughly negative environment, it must needs teach the lessons of the love of self, thus becoming one with its other selves. When this has been accomplished, the entity may then choose to release the potential difference and change polarities. However, the process of learning the accumulated lesson of love of self may be quite lengthy. Also, the entity, in learning these lessons, may lose much positive orientation during the process, and the choice of reversing polarities may be delayed until the mid-sixth density. All of this is, in your way of measurement, time-consuming, although the end result is, well. Questioner: is it possible to tell me roughly how many wanderers that have come to this planet within this master cycle have experienced this displacement into a negative time-space? Just wondering if there have been many. Ra: I am Ra. We can note the number of such occurrences. There has been only one. We cannot, due to the law of confusion, discuss the entity. Questioner: you said the higher self is reluctant to enter negative space-time. Is that correct? Ra: I am Ra. The incarnative process involves being incarnated from time-space to space-time. This is correct. Questioner: then the positively polarized entity, I will make this statement and see if I am correct, when first moved into time-space of a negative polarization experiences nothing but darkness. Then, on the incarnation into negative space-time by the higher self, it experiences a negative space-time environment with negatively polarized other selves. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: it would seem to me that this would be an extremely difficult situation for the positively polarized entity, and the learning process would be extremely traumatic. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. Let us say that the positively polarized individual makes a poor student of the love of self, and thus spends much more time, if you will, than those native to these patterns of vibrations. Questioner: is there no process or way by which the entity, once misplaced, and I am assuming this misplacement must be a function of his free will. Will in some way? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is absolutely correct. Questioner. Now this is a point that I find quite confusing to me. It is a function of the free will of the positively polarized entity to move into negatively polarized time-space. However, it is also a function of his lack of understanding of what he is doing. I am sure if the entity had full understanding of what he was doing, that he would not do it. It is a function of his negatively polarized other self creating a situation by which he is, shall I say, lured to that configuration. What is the principle with respect to the first distortion that allows this to occur, since we have two portions of the Creator, each of equal value or equal potential, shall I say, but oppositely polarized, and we have this situation resulting? Could you tell me the philosophical principle behind this particular act? Ra. I am Ra. There are two important points in this regard. Firstly, we may note the situation wherein an entity gets a roadmap which is poorly marked and, in fact, is quite incorrect. The entity sets out to its destination. It wishes only to reach the point of destination, but, becoming confused by the faulty authority and not knowing the territory through which it drives, it becomes hopelessly lost. Free will does not mean that there will be no circumstances when calculations will be awry. This is so in all aspects of life experience. Although there are no mistakes, there are surprises. Secondly, that which we and you do in working such as this carries a magical charge. If you would use this much misunderstood term, perhaps we may say a metaphysical power. Those who do not work of power are available for communication to and from entities of roughly similar power. It is fortunate that the Orion entity does not have the native power of this group. However, it is quite disciplined, whereas this group lacks the finesse equivalent to its power. Each is working in consciousness, but the group has not begun a work as a group. The individual work is helpful, for the group is mutually in aid one to another. Questioner. This instrument performs services on Sunday night channeling other members of the Confederation. We are reluctant to continue this because of the possibility of her slipping into trance and being offered the services of the negatively polarized adept. Are there any safeguards to create a situation where she cannot go into a trance other than at a protected working such as this one? Ra. I am Ra. There are three. Firstly, the instrument must needs improve the disciplined subconscious taboo against requesting Ra. This would involve daily conscious and serious thought. The second safeguard is the refraining from the opening of the instrument to questions and answers for the present. The third is quite gross in its appearance, but suffices to keep the instrument in its physical complex. The hand may be held. Questioner. Then you are saying just by holding the instrument's hand during the channeling sessions that this would prevent trance? Ra. I am Ra. This would prevent those levels of meditation which necessarily precede trance. Also, in the event that, unlikely as it might seem, the entity grew able to leave the physical complex, the auric infringement and the tactile pressure would cause the mind-body-spirit complex to refrain from leaving. Questioner. We keep bringing up points out of the Esmeralda Sweetwater book, but that being one particularly in this book. I was wondering, in that we were attempting to retrieve the space girl's mind-body-spirit complex from what must have been negative time-space, as it was placed there by the magician Trostrick. Was the scenario of Trostrick's action working with the space girl and in Esmeralda Sweetwater's magical ritual that she designed to help retrieve the space girl's mind-body-spirit complex? Were both of these techniques approximately reasonable, or were there any errors in the design of these magical techniques? Ra. I am Ra. There were no errors. We only remind each that this particular character imagined forth by you was an inexperienced adept. Questioner. You mean the character Trostrick? Ra. I am Ra. This is incorrect. We referred to Esmeralda as this imagined entity was called. We may note that long practiced at the art, which each intuits here would be helpful. We cannot speak of methodology, for the infringement would be most great. However, to speak of group efforts is, as we scan each, merely confirmation of what is known. Therefore, this we may do. We have the available energy for one fairly brief query. Questioner: there are many techniques and ways of practicing so-called white magical arts. Are rituals designed by a particular group for their own particular use just as good, or possibly better, than those that have been practiced by groups such as the Order of the Golden Dawn and other magical groups? Ra: I am Ra. Although we are unable to speak with precision on this query, we may note some gratification that the questioner has penetrated some of the gist of a formidable system of service and discipline. I am Ra. May we thank you again, my friends, for your conscientiousness. All is well. We leave you rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one infinite Creator. Go forth with joy. Adonai. Adonai, that's right. It's on the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle doing Live 1, session 69 right there. A couple notes I got, and then I think I got one question, maybe two. We'll see if anything else comes in the meantime. But a couple of the questions. Protection. We always have it, and it's really an issue of focusing on doing it sometimes. It's really the concept of putting on the armor of God. It's the idea that you're actually doing an action that's creating an outcome. That outcome being sufficient protection to protect you from spiritual attack or psychic attack or whatever. It can be done through a sphere of Christ white light around you. It can be done with your Merkaba. It can be done through prayer. It can be done through literally from like Ephesians, 6:11 or whatever it was, put on the armor of God, right? Like it could be very much literally you kind of imagining doing that or any other thing. But these are kind of approaches that actually work. And you're essentially doing a form of magic. It's not, though, it's metaphysics. But that's kind of what they were doing. You're doing an intention and knowing that intention works. And that's where the power really lies in it, is the knowing part, which is sometimes the tricky part. They spoke of gratitude. They were talking about, like, if something happens to this group, they're going to be grateful for the time they've had. And I forget exactly how they quoted it, but they were a little kind of taken aback by their like gratitude, like, and it's like, well, yeah, like we're stoked to be doing this. This is fantastic. And every single second of every single day that I get to experience with you or you guys or whoever are the ones we love is another day of paradise. So again, paradise may be stretching it, but nonetheless, they were talking about death. And Ra corrected him, and I think this is a cool part, and is really why I wrote it down. But they called it, oh, you mean the death experience? And that is the key, is the experience. Death it's a transition. It's not like you don't die. You transition like instantly, generally. Or like they say, if it's natural, it happens kind of through a progression, and you kind of realize it's happening. So you're sort of already sort of fading in and out, if you will. And then finally you commit to it. But it can also be in radical ways, like accidents and stuff. You get hit by a bus. Your consciousness won't know it. Your body just went flying, and you're still standing there in the street. You don't even realize what happened. And it'll take you a few to figure it out. And that's where it can be a little confusing. And so there is this experience that happens at death. And it depends on our situations. And many of those are, for the most part, chosen by ourselves. But maybe sometimes the Orion group tries to put their will into it, if you will. Let's see. Touch can or will prevent some of this trans activity where you're coming out of the body and stuff like that. It is, they always say don't wake a person that's dreaming. It is a very invasive thing to touch somebody when they're in a trance state in any way, shape, or form, dreaming, trance, whatever. So understand that, but it is very effective at bringing somebody back out of that experience. And if that is necessary to do it for whatever reason, or like in their case of this group, they were very concerned that they would lose themselves to the darkness, essentially, which again, there is no truly losing yourself, but it is a path that we all kind of walk. And it's, that low, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death and I fear no evil, is that real component that we're all sort of trying to grapple with. And once you realize that evil can only kind of render like try to tempt you, if you will, or anything, but it can't force you. It can't make you. It's always your choice. Has to be. That's the way the universe works. It can't take away your free will. And so again, that's why a lot of us talk about the bad guys out there have to kind of sort of televise what they're doing. Otherwise, it's karma. Otherwise, it comes back on them. So it's a whole issue of trying to control people, but getting them to accept that control. And Deep State's done a pretty good job about it. Got a couple questions so far. Maggie asks, question, you said that falling from a building committing suicide would have to be the worst way to go. Did I say that? Would you feel that you would be more aware? Question, you said that falling from a building committing suicide would have to be the worst way to go. Oh, I don't think the worst way. I mean, I think I get what you're saying. I actually think burning to death would be the worst way to go. Drowning would be frightening, but it's supposedly not that bad. But yeah, falling from a building, just because I have fall fear karma, like with the heights and stuff like that. Like I think it's something I've experienced in a few lives. So that's probably why I do have a bit of a body karma with it, if you will. But would you feel that you would be more aware? I don't quite get that part of the question, but yeah, I mean, I'm aware of my, and it kind of goes back to past lives and stuff like that. I mean, I know that. I just don't talk about it a lot. Pet 1985 asked a question. So when channeling, if you are doing it with a group, you need that group to channel that information because it takes more than just the instrument. It takes the others to channel Ra. They all hold the energy of the group. As Ra frequently says, it's a narrow band. And that narrow band's got a very specific set of gears that got to come together. And each one of those members of that group held down that through their caring about Carla and through the precision in the instruments and through the meditations they would do and the incantations they would do, but the love and great care. And in the case of one of them, they were obviously together in a relationship, so they had some nookie too. So that, she got her freak on every once in a while too, apparently. So all of these things kind of tried to help keep that channel going together. Now, it's my understanding, and I haven't really gotten ahead of the situation, but it's my understanding. I believe Carla died, and that's kind of what ended a lot of this stuff. So it is this attack and what happens and trying to do this work is a challenge. So again, sometimes I don't get too angry with myself for not having the largest number of people. It's like it's the perfect number of people, and you make too big a splash and everybody and their mother sees you. You know what I mean? So sometimes that's not always the best approach. That said, Patriots Daryl asked the question, did they find Ra in a random channeling or did Ra seek them out? I actually don't know that. Yeah, I don't know how they found Ra. I don't know how that happened. I don't know. Maybe I'll try to get into that and see if I can get an answer for you at some point. That's good. That's a good question. I know that Carla was into channeling and stuff like that, so they very well could have come across him. That's a great question. Yeah. Huh. I love Bill Sir. You sound like the way they phrase it, and that's awesome. He's saying this narrow band is meant as dawn, not asking too many transient questions, not spiritual questions, right? And again, that was just one of those, like, even transients, like they're weird words. They're words that most of us don't use on a regular basis. It's kind of fantastic in that regard. We got all the questions out thus far, and we're going to go into 70, which I think kind of continues in the same general vein. They do talk about the Bell aircraft, the UFOs that Ra used back in the day, which is kind of interesting because there's all sorts of, like, there's cave paintings and stuff that have these Bell aircraft, and they date back 10,000, 18,000, somewhere, a couple times. So they'll tell us in here. I don't have it committed to memory. But that is session 70. We're going to get that part kicking. It's right here. It's on the Fringe, doing Law of One. And again, like I said, session 70. Hope you guys enjoy. The Law of One, session 70, recorded September 9th, 1981. Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. Questioner, could you please give me an indication of the condition of the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. We are gratified to say that it is as previously stated. Questioner, why do you say you are gratified to say that? Ra. I am Ra. We say this due to a sense of gratitude at the elements which have enabled this instrument to maintain, against great odds, its vital energy at normal vibratory strength. As long as this complex of energies is satisfactory, we may use this instrument without depletion, regardless of the distortions previously mentioned. Questioner. The instrument has complained of intensive psychic attack for the past diurnal period, approximately. Is there a reason for the intensification of this at this time? Ra. I am Ra. Yes. Questioner. Can you tell me what this reason is, please? Ra. I am Ra. The cause is that which you are intimately involved. That is, the cause is the intensive seeking for what you may call enlightenment. This seeking upon your part has not abated, but intensified. In the general case, pain, as you would call this distortion, and the various exaggerations of this distortion by psychic attack would, after the depletion of physical complex energy, begin the depletion of vital energy. This instrument guards its vital energy due to previous errors upon its part. Its subconscious will, which is preternaturally strong for this density, has put a ward upon the energy complex. Thus, the Orion visitor strives with more and more intensity to disturb this vital energy as this group intensifies its dedication to service through enlightenment. Questioner. I have an extra little question that I wanted to throw in at this time. Is regressive hypnosis of an individual to reveal to them memories of previous incarnations a service or a disservice to them? Ra. I am Ra. We scan your query and find you shall apply the answer to your future. This causes us to be concerned with the first distortion. However, the query is also general and contains an opportunity for us to express a significant point. Therefore, we shall speak. There is an infinite range of possibilities of service-disservice in the situation of time regression hypnosis, as you term this meaning of aiding memory. It has nothing to do with the hypnotist. It has only to do with the use which the entity so hypnotized makes of the information so gleaned. If the hypnotist desires to serve, and if such a service is performed only upon sincere requests, the hypnotist is attempting to be of service. Questioner. In the last session, Ross stated that the path back from sixth density negative time-space revolves firstly about the higher self's reluctance to enter negative time-space. Could you explain that higher self's position with respect to positive and negative time-space, and why it is so reluctant to enter negative time-space that it is necessary for the mind-body-spirit complex to incarnate in negative space-time to find its path back? Ra. I am Ra. In brief, you have answered your own query. Please question further for more precise information. Questioner. Why is the higher self reluctant to enter negative time-space? Ra. I am Ra. The higher self is reluctant to allow its mind-body-spirit complex to enter negative time-space for the same basic reason an entity of your social complex would be reluctant to enter a prison. Questioner. What I am trying to understand here is more about the higher self and its relationship with the mind-body-spirit complex. Does the higher self have a sixth density mind-body-spirit complex that is a separate unit from the mind-body-spirit complex that is, in this case, displaced to negative time-space? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. The higher self is the entity of mid-sixth density which, turning back, offers this service to itself. Questioner. I think I have an erroneous concept of the mind-body-spirit complex. For instance, that I represent here in this density and my higher self. The concept probably comes from my concept of space and time. I'm going to try to unscramble it. The way I see it right now is that I am existing in two different locations, here and in the mid-sixth density, simultaneously. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. You are existing at all levels simultaneously. It is specifically correct that your higher self is you in mid-sixth density, and in your way of meaning what you know of as time, your higher self is yourself in your future. Questioner. Am I correct in assuming that all of the mind-body-spirit complexes that exist in the levels below mid-sixth density have a higher self in mid-sixth density? Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner. Would an analogy for this situation be that the individual's higher self is manipulating to some extent, shall I say, the mind-body-spirit complex that is its analog, you might say, to move it through the lower densities for purpose of gaining experience, and then finally transferring that experience, or amalgamating it, if you might say, in mid-6 density with the higher self. Ra, I am Ra. This is incorrect. The higher self does not manipulate its past selves. It protects when possible and guides when asked. But the force of free will is paramount. The seeming contradictions of determinism and free will melt when it is accepted that there is such a thing as true simultaneity. The higher self is the end result of all the development experienced by the mind-body-spirit complex to that point. Questioner, then what we are looking at is a long path of experience through the densities up to mid-6 density, which are a function totally of free will and result in the awareness of the higher self in mid-6 density. But since time is illusory and there is, shall I say, unification of time and space, or an eradication of what we think of as time, then all of this experience that results in the higher self, the cause of evolvement through the densities, is existing while the evolvement takes place, since it is all simultaneous. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. We refrain from speaking of correctness due to our understanding of the immense difficulty of absorbing the concepts of metaphysical existence. In time-space, which is precisely as much of yourself as is space-time, all times are simultaneous, just as in your geography, your cities and villages are all functioning, bustling, and alive with entities going about their business at once. So it is in time-space with the self. Questioner, the higher self existing in mid-6 density seems to be at the point where the negative and positive paths of experience merge into one. Is there a reason for this? Ra, I am Ra. We have covered this material previously. Questioner, oh yes, sorry about that. It slipped my mind. Now, if a positive entity is displaced to negative time-space, I understand that the higher self is reluctant to enter the negative time-space. And for some reason, this makes it necessary for the mind-body-spirit complex to incarnate in negative space-time. Why is it necessary for this incarnation in negative space-time? Ra, I am Ra. Firstly, let us remove the concept of reluctance from the equation, and then secondly, address your query more to the point. Each time-space is an analog of a particular sort, or vibration of space-time. When a negative time-space is entered by an entity, the next experience will be that of the appropriate space-time. This is normally done by the form-making body of the mind-body-spirit complex, which places the entity in the proper time-space for incarnation. Questioner, I think to try and clear up this point, I'm going to ask a few questions that are related that will possibly enable me to understand this better, because I am really confused about this, and I think it is a very important point in understanding the creation and the Creator in general, you might say. If a wanderer of 4th, 5th, or 6th density dies from this 3rd density state in which we presently find ourselves, does he then find himself in 3rd density time-space after death? Ra, I am Ra. This will depend upon the plan which has been approved by the Council of Nine. Some wanderers offer themselves for but one incarnation, while others offer themselves for varying lengths of your time up to and including the last 2 cycles of 25,000 years. If the agreed-upon mission is complete, the wanderer's mind-body-spirit complex will go to the home vibration. Questioner, have there been any wanderers on this planet for the past 50,000 years now? Ra, I am Ra. There have been a few. There have been many more which chose to join this last cycle of 25,000 years, and many, many more which have come for harvest. Questioner, now here's the point of my confusion. If after physical death, a wanderer would return to his home planet, shall I say, why cannot the same entity be extracted from negative time-space to the home planet rather than incarnating into negative space-time? Ra, I am Ra. As we have stated, the position in negative time-space of which we previously were speaking is that position which is pre-incarnative. After the death of the physical complex in yellow ray activation, the mind-body-spirit complex moves to a far different portion of time-space, in which the indigo body will allow much healing and review to take place before any movement is made towards another incarnative experience. I perceive a basic miscalculation upon your part in that time-space is no more homogeneous than space-time. It is as complex and complete a system of illusion, dances, and patterns as is space-time, and has as structured a system of what you may call natural laws. Questioner: I'll ask this question to inform me a little bit about what you just stated. When you came to this planet in craft 18,000 and 11,000 years ago, these craft have been called, I believe, Bell craft, and were photographed by George Adamski. If I am correct, these craft look somewhat like a bell. They had portals around the upper portions, and they had 3 hemispheres at 120 degrees apart underneath. Is this correct? Ra: I am Ra. This is correct. Questioner: Were these constructed in time-space or space-time? Ra: I am Ra. We ask your persistent patience, for our answer must be complex. A construct of thought was formed in time-space. This portion of time-space is that which approaches the speed of light. In time-space, at this approach, the conditions are such that time becomes infinite and mass ceases, so that one is able to skim the, shall we say, boundary strength of this time-space is able to become placed where it will. When we were where we wished to be, we then clothed the construct of light with that which would appear as a crystal bell. This was formed through the boundary into space-time. Thus, there were 2 constructs, the time-space or immaterial construct, and the space-time or materialized construct. Questioner: Now, was there a reason for the particular shape you chose, in particular a reason for the 3 hemispheres on the bottom? Ra: I am Ra. It seemed an aesthetically pleasing form, and one well suited to those limited uses which we must needs make of your space-time motivating requirements. Questioner: Was there a principle of motivation contained within the 3 hemispheres on the bottom, or were they just aesthetic, or were they landing gear? Ra: I am Ra. These were aesthetic and part of a system of propulsion. These hemispheres were not landing gear. Questioner: I am sorry to ask such stupid questions, but I am trying to determine something about space-time, time-space, and you might say this is a very difficult area of the mechanisms of evolution. I think it is central to the understanding of our evolution. However, I am not sure of this, and I may be wasting my time. Could Ra comment on whether I am wasting my time in this particular investigation, or whether it would be fruitful? Ra: I am Ra. Since the concepts of space-time or physics and time-space or metaphysics are mechanical, they are not central to the spiritual evolution of the mind-body-spirit complex. The study of love and light is far more productive in its motion towards unity in those entities pondering such concepts. However, this material is, shall we say, of some small interest and is harmless. Questioner: I was asking these questions primarily to understand, or to build a base for an attempt to get a little bit of enlightenment on the way that time-space and space-time is related to the evolution of the mind-body-spirit complex, so that I could better understand the techniques, you might say, of that evolution. For instance, you stated that the potential difference may be released and polarities changed after an entity has taught the lessons of love of self. If the entity is a positive entity that has found itself in a negative time-space, and then had to incarnate in negative space-time. And what I was trying to do was build a base for attempting to understand, or at least get a slight understanding of what you meant by this statement, that potential difference may be released and polarities changed after the above step. I am very interested in knowing, if placed in a negative time-space, why it is necessary to incarnate into negative time-space and learn teach love of self and develop, I guess, a 6th density level of polarity before you can release that potential difference. I was trying to build a little foothold or platform from which to make that more apparent. Could you speak on that subject, please? Ra: I am Ra. This will be the last full query of this working. The entity which incarnates into negative space-time will not find it possible to maintain any significant positive polarity, as negativity, when pure, is a type of gravity, well, shall we say, pulling all into it. Thus, the entity, while remembering its learned and preferred polarity, must needs make use of the catalyst given and recapitulate the lessons of service to self in order to build up enough polarity in order to cause the potential to occur for reversal. There is much in this line of questioning which is somewhat muddled. May we, at this point, allow the questioner to rephrase the question or to turn the direction of query more towards that which is the heart of its concern. Questioner: I will at the next session then attempt to turn more towards the heart. I was attempting in this session to get at a point that I thought was central to the evolution of spirit, but I seem to have gone awry. I'm sorry for that. It is sometimes very, very difficult for me to question wisely in these areas. I will just ask if there is anything that we can do to benefit the contact or make the instrument more comfortable. Ra: I am Ra. You are most conscientious, and the alignments are especially good. We thank you, my friends, and have been glad to speak with you. We are attempting to be of the greatest aid to you by taking care not to deplete this instrument. Thus, although a reserve remains, we will attempt from this working onward to keep this reserve, for this instrument has arranged its subconscious to accept this configuration. I am Ra. You are doing well, my friends. We leave you in the love and in the light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing and glorifying in the power and in the peace of the one infinite Creator. Adonai. On the Fringe with Dan RadioStyle. I'm glad you guys are all with us. Lob 1, yes, again, session 70, a lot of stuff they talk about in there. And I got a couple notes, and we got some definite questions coming. And then I'll offer up the link when we close out, and you guys can join for any quick questions that you might have in off air, if you will, or off camera. Well, on camera, but just off air. Hypnosis is something that I know a little bit about. I've known people that were into it. I've seen it happen. I tried to actually be hypnotized myself. Not everybody can, and I just wasn't. But I saw friends of mine do outlandish things. It was actually comical and scary at the same time. So hypnotism is something that is very real, very possible, and can be used in a lot of different ways, both good and bad. So again, don't want to. I'm kind of like them, like rods. You don't necessarily want to say one thing or the other, because it's a tool like anything else, and it can be used for good, but it is very, 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 very easy to take advantage of someone's subconscious and do harm. And again, so you really got to trust the person that's going to have you under hypnosis, assuming it works, and it will in most cases. But it's just it's all. Higher self is a very important concept, a very important thing to understand, a very important thing for every single one of us to spend more time trying to talk to. You'll be amazed. The higher self wants you to succeed in every way, shape, and form, wants you to understand all of the questions that you possibly have. And as you get better talking to your higher self, and there's some fun ways you can sort of channel your own higher self, if you will, or experience your higher self. I really, really, really recommend doing that. You will be amazed you'll be amazed how it really starts to complete aspects of your life that you didn't like. You stuff like hidden stuff, like lifting up and just seeing things like you're like, wow, this is changing my life. Like this, what I'm learning and understanding about myself and how the guidance has worked. It's kind of powerful. It's all I can say. Again, there's auto writing, auto talking. You can, that's what else? Talking, writing, drawing, even people sometimes do that. Dreams, you can influence your dreams or suggest, show me this while I'm, if you're someone that has dreams really easily. There's a lot of ways you can have your higher self really start to communicate with you. Physical symbols in the world. Again, a lot of fun stuff. Higher self definitely knows what's going on. Higher self is sitting outside of positive, negative. It's above that. It's that 6.5 density, I guess they're talking about. But it's outside of the positive, negative nonsense. It's going to give you the best answer for you. It is your best friend. Like it is you. And it's important. Simultaneity, and that's like sub God, by the way. God's still like source anyway, is still above that. Like it's not like your higher self's above that. Higher self is very aware of source still, being outside of itself, if you will. Simultaneity, there's this concept that all time is now, and that's kind of really what is going on. So you might have other lives. They're not really past and present, if you will. A lot of them are happening simultaneously, and that's very confusing. And we're multi-fragmented, we're multifaceted. But for the most part, thinking of them as past and future and present. I mean, there's probably some in the past. I assume there's like prior evolutions. I kind of think that's where the older soul concept comes from, is people that have graduated before. So there is a concept to that. And we're all living on the same eternal now. It's just some of us seem like we've had more of these experiences overall. Again, it's kind of hard to explain the way time seems to work, but yeah, we're just constantly always now. And just like here, like yesterday was yesterday, but your right now is the only now you're ever going to have. And then, oh shoot, 5 minutes ago was that now. But so now is a weird thing. Let's see. We higher self choose incarnation, and we do. Our higher self is directly involved with not only that, their parents, their friends, the key parts of your life. Like this is hard for a lot of people to accept, but life is not planned out because there's all sorts of variance, and you want to see how you're going to react to it, and you kind of set yourself up in the perfect environment to end up where you need to. And then it's like, all right, what are you going to do? And that's really, to a large extent, what a lot of these experiences are, is us experiencing avenues that we want to understand better, and maybe even karmically have to sort of equal out for things maybe we've done in other lives that might have been bad. Time, space, and space time. I don't know. I kind of see it sort of similar to like the faster than light or slower than light, sublight or whatever. Like it's just that concept where you're outside of the normal flow stream, the density. You're kind of more like a ghost, if you will. It's just you're outside of the dimension, kind of. It's kind of a cool. It's like our higher dimension. And then when you get down into this density, that's very, very much like you're in space. Like your space is around you. Three-dimensional space is what we're a part of. And then time's this component that you experience the now, but there's a heavy space component. When on the other side, there's the concept of time. You understand that now is all there is, and you experience multitudes of nows. But the concept of space, like there's like the body's not really, like you don't think about it that much. Like sometimes you might. I understand that we still eat and stuff. They talk about that. So space and time are kind of funny little differences in all that stuff. Okay. Wow. We got a bunch of questions. Looks like Maggie's got a few questions. We'll just kind of roll through these. Do you feel that the sun with these disturbances are what is causing these volcanoes and earthquakes, and also our own vibrations? There, I believe, is more of a central galactic core. There was a sheet, kind of a thing it did, and that is affecting us. Now, these timings are perfect. There's also some understanding that we're in a unique part of the galaxy, and so maybe there's something to be said about that, which is causing larger activity in the sun. This is also an interesting timing that every roughly 6,000, 6,500 years, the Earth has a calamity, and then roughly about double that, every 12,000-ish or so, we have a really bad calamity. And so we're kind of at that 12,000 year mark as well. So there's a number of interesting things happening. And I do think that's affecting the sun and our solar system. I also do think that it's affecting all of us as well, energetically. But there was discussions too that every planet in the solar system had weird things happening to it. One of them had their entire atmosphere blown out. I want to say it was Pluto, but I might be wrong. But we've got temperatures warming on Mars. Jupiter's spot, and they created a second one somewhere. Like just a whole lot of weird, crazy stuff started happening in the solar system. So we're in a very unique place. My understanding is we're energetically being helped, and we're supposed to sort of take the handoff and sort of assume control and responsibility of this transition. There you go. That's the nuts and bolts of it. The best I can give you. So yes to you. But yeah, kind of a little more complex than that. Maggie also asked, I feel our Earth is not a floating sphere, nor is it completely flat. What is your proof of it being a round ball? I have questioned this many times in my life. These are many lies. I have no desire to have that conversation with you, Maggie, at all. You can believe whatever you'd like. And everybody can believe whatever they want. I'm not going to even have a second on that one. Patriot Daryl, if our higher self is our future self and our higher self already 6th density, why are we going through the lower density again? We need more knowledge experience to go beyond the 6th? It's, well, probably yes. Hard to say for sure, but yes, probably. The experience of being here is I guess it would be like there's certain video games and stuff. It's like, why did you play that game over and over and over? Why do you keep watching that same movie? Why do you try to do something again? And it's the idea of really learning the lesson, really truly becoming a more complete more complete soul. if you will. More experiences makes you more complete. It adds more levels to you. It adds more density to you. It adds more oomph, if you will, more seasoning. I don't know, more flavor. It is a big part of it. I mean, because this, and again, I don't know what regular life is like in the sixth density. I've had a couple flashes of it and a few fun experiences, and it's oddly consistent, but it's almost like more of a cerebral thing, it seems, more of a thought thing. You're more kind of just in thought and focus. And here it's very physical and very dense and very like you're very involved, and you can actually like nick your hand and bleed or bump your elbow and be like, ow. Like there's just like this different concept here. And again, I kind of still liken it to like a video game to an extent. Like it's a place where you can experience a lot of stuff, frankly. So cool question. I don't know. Hopefully I did okay on that. Apparently Epstein did not kill himself is in our chat, which is fantastic. He has a question. I assume it's a he. Can I get some clarification about the difference between the different octaves of the sixth density? I'm sure this was covered, but I am unclear about the ascending higher densities. From what they explain and how they explain it, I don't know if I'm going to be able to give you the greatest answer, but for every density, there are 8 octaves, and then within every octave there's 8 octaves, and right, and so I think they say 7, but then the next is the next step. So it's that completion. It's like color, the 7 colors of the rainbow. The 8th one is the next step. So to my concept or understanding, everything can kind of be broken down into a smaller component, and that's, I think, how we kind of substructure maybe some of the lessons. Like maybe it's some of the little check boxes, like when we go to do our life, we're like, all right, do I want to have big lips because I want people to make fun of me for it, and then I want to whatever, like weird choices that we wouldn't, you wouldn't necessarily think of that maybe are a part of that. I mean, again, within the densities, now again, I couldn't just list them off the top of my head. It's a big difference. One's heading towards light. I don't have them all memorized. And the densities is really the reason I wanted to learn this, because it's the part of this that I think is the most cool. It's the part that I'm still trying to figure out exactly where I fit in on that big picture. And it's just fun because you deal with people in a large sense, and some people have a harder time just being nice to one another. Some people are very kind of way above that, and they're like, no, this is totally cool, but still yet, have maybe a weird, I don't want to be too descriptive, but there's like, you kind of come across levels. And I've certainly met people that were like crazier than me in a good way, and then, you sort of assess yourself. It's like anybody that's been in any industry, like you talk to somebody else, you can instantly tell kind of where they're coming from just by the way they talk. And so I don't know. It's a great question. I don't know. You guys are you're definitely giving me some good stuff. I love it. And then Maggie, another question. I keep hearing we will be transcending soon. The ones that are awake enough. How do you feel about this? I feel like we're transcending now. I feel like the experience is happening, and I think there's multiple timelines. Is my understanding. And I think some of us are going to just naturally gravitate in different directions than others. There will be a lack of comfort in the energy of other people. And so certain energies are going to start to separate themselves into their own little camps. How that official separation works, I don't know. I don't know exactly. I don't know if that's that flash. Again, a lot of people kind of joke about that because it's something that we've heard for eons, that there'd be some sort of sign in the sky, some sort of flash, some sort of moment where we would kind of have just a sort of a self moment. And how this plays out, we'll see. But I do believe heavily that this planet itself is going to continue on in 5D positive. And there needs to be a place for others to go that aren't a part of that. And how that separation occurs and what they experience through that separation. And really, a lot of people are talking about 2026 really being the crazy year, or the year of just transition, but it's going to be crazy, I think, to a large extent. So I think all of these things sort of play together, and each one of us, what's in our heart, what's in our belief structure, how we view everything around us is going to shape your experience. And that's why I frequently talk about how it's so important that you guys are dialed in yourselves, because ultimately your experience is going to be generated by you. And the more you get that and understand that going into it, the more you can kind of prepare yourself and kind of smooth it out a little bit, if you will. It's, I don't know. It's kind of the way I see that. I don't know. Hope you guys enjoyed, for lack of a better way to put it. I am going to go ahead and get the StreamYard is going into the chat right now. If you guys want to join, I will be closing out. I hope you guys have a wonderful end of the week. Got a great music show coming up tomorrow too, by the way. All that said, I'll be chatting with a few of you guys in chat for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. We'll see how it goes. But all said, I love you guys. Law of One, session 69 and 70. It is, of course, on the Fringe. And yeah, there we go with Dan RadioStyle.
Meditation is supposed to be fun. It's not something you do as a grim duty. The trouble with religion as we know it is that it is so mixed up with grim duties. We do it because it's good for you. It's a kind of self-punishment. Well, meditation, when correctly done, has nothing to do with all that. It's a kind of digging the present. It's a kind of grooving with the eternal now. And brings us into a state of peace where we can understand that the point of life, the place where it's at, is simply here and now.
This moment is the creation of the universe. It's starting now. If you look back and wonder whether there was a big bang a long time ago, all you'll see is vanishing traces. The big bang is happening now. This is when the world begins. You're doing it. Only you're not doing it by straining. A you deeper than the straining you is doing all this. The same you that is growing your hair and coloring your eyes and making your thumbprints and all that. You don't think about it. You don't strain muscles to do it. But that is what is creating the world. Here it comes. Now. So instead of thinking that the past is the reality which explains everything that happens now, let's look at now.